Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Kenzie and today I wanted to talk to you about kind of an overarching goal that I have for 2026, which is to participate in my own personal curriculum. So I've kind of seen this idea pop up on YouTube a couple of times, and when I was setting out to plan my year and make goals for the year, I thought again about this idea and I was really interested in participating in it. So I have decided to create my own little personal curriculum, and I'm just gonna talk to you all about what I plan on studying and what I'm hoping to get to this year. But first, let's touch on what is a personal curriculum. I think that this can mean lots of things for lots of people. Not everyone has it very structured. Some people just go with whatever they feel like learning at the time. But generally, a personal curriculum is a pathway that you set for yourself on things that you want to learn. So kind of like if you were to sign up for a course at a college or something, they would have kind of a set path of all of the things that you're going to learn in that class, all of the material that you're going to go over. It's kind of like that, but you make it for yourself. You decide what you're going to learn, what material you're going to go over, and you just do it yourself. There's no outside pressure. It's just kind of a fun thing to further your own learning, and I think that's really great. I have a big old list here of all of my little curriculum pieces. So I'm going to take you through everything that I want to learn and discuss the materials that I'm going to be getting into this year. So my personal curriculum is very much literature focused. I read a lot, as you can probably tell by the very messy bookshelves behind me, but I want to read more intentionally and more broadly this year, kind of a little bit out of my comfort zone. If you don't know, I am also a writer, so I think reading is super important for informing your writing craft. This course is not only to get me to read more broadly, but also to help my writing craft. So I have 5 different sections that I have divided this up into, but they're all kind of literature focused. It's just different aspects of literature, if that makes sense. So with that being said, my first section is just classic literature foundations, is what I decided to title it. These are more general pieces. They don't really fit into the other categories that I chose. I think that they're just good places to start. I have read classics in the past, so these aren't like classics 101, but I think that they are pretty good places for me personally to be starting. Oh, also, when I'm participating in this, I'm not going to be going through in order. I'm not going to start at the top of my list and work my way down. I'm honestly just going to jump around to whatever is drawing me. Some of the sections I do want to go in order, but I'm not going to go like section by section in order, if that makes sense. So for this first section, the classic literature foundations, I have 5 books. Again, these aren't like classics 101. They're just generally things that I think would be good to inform me and to kind of broaden my horizons in terms of classics. So the first book that I have is the Odyssey. This is a very famous Greek epic. I have kind of read this. I skimmed it for a class that I took. I just did not have enough time with all of my other classes. I did not have enough time to read this, so I just skimmed it for what I needed for that class and called it good enough. But I really want to go back and actually read this cover to cover and really get into it as a piece of literature. 1, because I think it is a very interesting story, but 2, I also think it's really important to see kind of these more ancient pieces and what has informed literature today. And I think the Odyssey is a pretty good place to start in terms of ancient literature. It's not my first piece, but it is one that I'm interested in reading this year, actually reading cover to cover. And then also kind of in that same vein, I want to read Agamemnon. This is another Greek work, and this is particularly interesting to me because it is a story of revenge. This was briefly touched on in that same course that I took, but it was more so like pick the piece that you want to read. I ended up picking something else, but I was really interested in reading Agamemnon, so I added it to my list for this year. I really want to get to that one and see what it's about, kind of delve into the themes that it dissects. The next work for this section is Dante's Inferno. This is the last one on this list that was in that course that I took, but another one like the Odyssey that I skimmed because unfortunately I just did not have enough time to actually read this one, but I do want to read it. This is such a famous piece and I think it informs so much of not only literature but also the world, so I really want to get into it and actually read it instead of just skimming it for that class. I would like to read the entire Divine Comedy eventually, but I think that Inferno is a pretty good place place to start. That's where we started in my class. We didn't really touch on either of the other works. I think that this is a good place to start. Maybe later, a different year, I'll go ahead and read the other works in the Divine Comedy, but for now, I just want to read Inferno. The next piece for this section is 100 Years of Solitude. This book is one that I've heard a lot of things about. I don't really know the premise of it. I know vaguely that it's about a family over 100 years, so kind of a generational saga. I've just heard really great things about this. It is, I think, a lesser known classic, so I think that this would be a good addition to my curriculum. I also don't think that it really fit in any of the other sections, so I just went ahead and put it in the Foundations section. I also want to read East of Eden. Again, I don't super know what this one is about, but when I was looking at lists of the most influential classics, this one came up again and again, so I decided to add this to the list. From what I know of the premise, this sounds like it's going to be a very interesting one, and I think that the themes are going to really appeal to me, so I am excited to get to this one at some point this year. My next section for my little personal curriculum is my Virginia Woolf section. I have read one work by Virginia Woolf in the past, and that was Mrs. Dalloway, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I think Virginia Woolf is a little bit more of a difficult author to get into, especially if you are new to classics. Just because of her writing style, she writes very stream of consciousness, and not everything makes sense. The sentences are very, very long and kind of rambling, but I did really like Mrs. Dalloway, so I want to get into more of Virginia Woolf's work. I also have an entire collection of a bunch of her work. This is like 1,000 pages. I just put in all of the pieces from this collection onto my list, and I think these are a lot of the major pieces from Virginia Woolf. So I thought that this would be an easy way to kind of contain everything that I want to get into. I'm sure that I will have more to read when I'm done with this, but I think that this volume is a pretty good place to start. The specific pieces that I will be reading this year from Virginia Woolf are Jacob's Room, which I am currently reading actually, To the Lighthouse, which I actually have a separate copy of that I got before, that big bind up copy. So I'll probably just read from this copy when I get to the Lighthouse. The next one is Orlando, A Room of One's Own, The Waves, 3 Guineas, and Between the Acts. And I don't really know very much about what any of these particular pieces are about, so I won't be able to give you a summary on any of them, unfortunately, but I just included them because I want to read more of Virginia Woolf's work, and I am really excited to delve into her pieces because I did really like Mrs. Dalloway. So far, I am enjoying Jacob's Room. Again, it is a little bit more difficult to read Virginia Woolf just because of her writing style, so it is taking me a little bit just to decipher it and figure out what's going on and what Virginia Woolf is trying to say. So I do think that this section is going to take me a little bit longer throughout the year, but I think I should be able to kind of spread out the 7 pieces that I've chosen throughout the year, and I should be able to get to them all, I hope, by the end of 2026. The next section is very similar to that last one in that it is a specific author who I want to read, and that is Jane Austen. I have actually never read any of Jane Austen's work. I've started Sense and Sensibility a while ago, and then I ended up putting it down for some reason. I don't remember, but I've never read any of her work cover to cover. But I really, really, really love the Pride and Prejudice movie with Keira Knightley. I love that movie, so I've been really, really wanting to read Pride and Prejudice, but also all of Jane Austen's work ever since I watched that movie. I'm not going to pull them all out, but I do own all of Jane Austen's work. This is my copy of Pride and Prejudice, and I am planning to go through her work in publication order. That's how it makes sense in my brain to go through these books. Also, I feel like that would give me a good viewpoint of how Jane Austen's writing developed over the course of her career. I know that some of these pieces were published in different orders than she wrote them, but I'm just going to read them in the order that they were published. So that means that I will start with Sense and Sensibility, then I'll read Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Emma, Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, and then I have a little copy of her unfinished works, which would be Lady Susan, The Watsons, and I don't really know how to pronounce this, Sanditon? whatever that is. So I also want to read this little bind up of her unfinished books because I think that that's also really important to see kind of what her in progress pieces looked like. And I also think that this will be a great way to kind of wrap up the section after I've read all of these other pieces. So that is another 7 books, including the unfinished works. I just counted that as one book. And again, I think that that will be pretty easy to spread out throughout the year. I'm excited to get into that again because I really love the Pride and Prejudice movie. Maybe I will go ahead and watch some other adaptations, but I'm really excited to actually read Jane Austen this year. The next section is again very similar in that this is a specific body of work that I am going for, and that is the Bronte sisters. I don't know if it's Bronte or Bronte. Sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, and Anne Bronte. All 3 of them are classics authors, and I'm really interested in reading these works. The kind of gothic atmosphere that most of these books contain, or all of them, I'm not really sure, really draws me in, and is something that I'm really interested in reading because as a writer I do have some kind of gothic influenced pieces of my own. So these ones I'm also going to go in order of their publication. So I'll be reading Jane Eyre first, then Wuthering Heights, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, not sure how that's pronounced, Agnes Grey, Shirley, Villette, and The Professor. Wuthering Heights was written by Emily Bronte, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall and Agnes Grey were written by Anne Bronte, and then the rest of them were written by Charlotte. Again, just really excited to get into the works by these sisters, and I think especially the kind of gothic theme to it will really inform those pieces of my own that have a more gothic influence. So really excited to get into that section. And then the last section that I will be completing for my 2026 personal curriculum is a short fiction and poetry section. I added this because I realized that I don't really read a whole lot of short fiction and I don't read poetry pretty much at all, and I want to change that. So I added a big section, this is definitely my longest section, of a bunch of pieces that from what I found online are pretty good starts for both short fiction and for poetry. So let me know if you think that I should add anything to this. These are just what I chose to kind of get myself into this side of books that I don't really touch. So these are in no particular order, but I am going to read Nocturnes by Kazuo Ishiguro, Dubliners by James Joyce, which I'm actually currently reading. I'd like to pick some kind of collection of stories by Edgar Allan Poe. I think it depends on what I'm able to find in a bookstore, but I read some Edgar Allan Poe in middle school and maybe high school, I believe, and I enjoyed it at the time, so I'd like to go back to that and reread it and see what I think of it today. The Lottery and Other Stories by, I didn't write down the author on this one, but I believe it's Shirley Jackson. I have it written on my phone, just not on my bullet journal. 9 Stories by J.D. Salinger, who is the author of The Catcher in the Rye, which I haven't read yet and I definitely intend to read. I've just heard that 9 Stories is a pretty good place to start in terms of short fiction. So Goblin Market by Christina Rossetti, which I've heard incredible things about. The Complete Poems by Emily Dickinson. If Not Winter by Sappho, and I've heard that a good translation is by Anne Carson, so I will be picking that one up. The Complete Poems by Anne Sexton, and Ariel by Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath wrote The Bell Jar, which again, haven't read, definitely intend to read. Any of the more well-known pieces by any of the authors in this section, just know that I am hoping to get to eventually. I just chose these pieces to start with for this curriculum. So yeah, that is 10 pieces that I'm hoping to get to this year. Because they're a little bit on the shorter side, I definitely think that these will be easier to tackle throughout the year. Like I said, I'm currently reading Dubliners by James Joyce and really enjoying it. That one has been easy to just pick up a little bit at a time, read a story from it, pick it up later when I have time again. So I definitely think, even though this is a little bit of a longer section for my curriculum, I think that it's going to be pretty easy to get to and easy to spread out throughout the year. So I'm also open to adding more. If you have any ideas or suggestions on short fiction or poetry that I should read, also feel free to add suggestions for anything else. I can't guarantee that for the other sections I'll be able to get to it this year. Feel free to leave them. Maybe my 2027 curriculum will have them included, or if I miraculously have the time, I will pick them up. Feel free to leave them down below. And then kind of just overall for my personal curriculum, I kind of set a couple of little goals to kind of just guide me through the process and keep me on track and make sure that I am hitting as many of these pieces as I can throughout the year. So first of all, I want to complete at least 60% of each of these sections. That's a different amount of pieces for each section depending on how many books there are. Roughly 60% of each course or section I would like to complete. That way I'm making sure I'm spreading out through all of the sections. I'm not favoring one section and then another one has nothing crossed off by the end of the year. If I can get more than 60%, that would absolutely be ideal, but that's kind of just my minimum to kind of keep me on track. And then I also would really like to just challenge myself to write an analysis on 5 of these pieces. So probably my 5 favorites. I want to just sit down and write, I guess, an essay just for fun on my analysis of the piece, kind of dissecting the themes that it tackles and my thoughts. I just think that that would be a good way to really engage with the pieces that I choose and also further my comprehension of everything. If I'm between writing an analysis and finishing another book, I would rather finish another book. If I have time, I would really like to write analytical essays, I guess you would call it, on a couple of these pieces just for fun. There's nothing that is telling me that I need to do this. I have no one to turn this into, but I think that it would be a fun exercise for myself to really dig deeper into these works and gather my thoughts all in one place, if that makes sense. So yeah, those are all of my sections and all of the works that I want to read for my 2026 personal curriculum. Let me know if you have any thoughts on any of this, if you think that I chose good books or the wrong books, or if you have suggestions for more books. I don't know, let me know in the comments. Also, let me know if you have anything like this going on for yourself. If you have a personal curriculum or just some books that you've chosen that you want to read this year. I'm definitely going to be reading other books than these. I've already been reading other books, so this list isn't going to contain all of my reading for the year. I'm definitely going to still let myself read whatever I feel like picking up, but this is kind of just to guide myself and to kind of stretch my more critical reading muscles, I guess. Also get to some areas of reading that I don't really touch very often. So definitely stay tuned throughout the year. I plan on discussing more things as we go along. Stay tuned for discussions, maybe for some reading vlogs, I'm not sure. I appreciate you so much for watching this, and I hope that you're having a great year so far. Bye!